Welcome to the Holeinthewall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill Dement, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Holeinthewall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, summer has arrived.
Man, it is here and it is hot.
It's here. It's hot in just a few days, 4th of July.
I know hurricane season is upon us, which is always a bittersweet for us because we know that we don't like hurricanes in Florida.
Well, we're going to get them regardless.
When we get them, we are the great support for our customers who need them.
Do you know, I think that pre-show may be a near record. I think it was over an hour just visiting with this guest and wished it could have continued. We just had to stop because we're like, we really need to get this podcast going.
We probably should start the rest of our day. We'll keep him here all day long. So we'll just talk about it. So obviously, most of our listeners know that we meet a lot of our interesting guests from friends of ours or people who are in our networking groups. And I have bumped into Jim Roman multiple times. He's also good friends with our friend Andy Lonzak with Precision Auto Wraps, who does all of our auto wraps. And he is a business coach. So Jim, we want to welcome you. Welcome to the show, Jim Roman, the owner of Business Owner Institute. And man, what a fabulous pre-show. So if we can just capture half of that for the rest of the show, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
So, welcome, friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I think it would be beneficial to kind of recap a little bit of what we already talked about because there's some cool stuff in there. But let people know kind of like who you are and why your specific micro to millions and why you're good at it and just kind of what led you to where you are today and how you're going to benefit our listeners.
I mean, the short answer to why I'm good at what I do is I've been through it. But how I got here is I was raised in the restaurant industry in Northeast Pennsylvania. My parents started a restaurant when I was 13, so I watched them grow that business, but also take a strain on them. Until 1996, where my dad, at the age of 61, died of a heart attack and the restaurant died. And that was my inspiration to get my act together, get serious about business and build a business. And I built 3 businesses and sold since then.
Well, so, I mean, they always say you want to start a good restaurant, start with $2 million and expect to lose it all, right?
That's right.
That's right. That's how you make $1 million, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Start with 2.
Start with 2, you make $1 million. It's a hard business, restaurant business. Oh, yeah. And so how long did they survive? Had the business survive?
I want to say 15 years. So my dad was in the manufacturing industry, got laid off twice. And the only job he can find was in Miami. We're from Pennsylvania. And he said he didn't want to uproot the kids. So he started a business with my mom's best friend and her husband. And that's what they did.
They did the restaurant.
Yeah.
Wow. And so the inspiration when the business was lost because of the tragic death of your father, that inspiration, as far as it closed because there wasn't something in place to kind of keep it afloat while he was gone?
Yeah, he was the business. My mom and dad ran the restaurant, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get into the restaurant by 5:30, get everything set up, open at 7 o'clock, and the repeat presents every day.
And so without him there, the restaurant wasn't able to sustain.
Correct. He didn't, no leaders in place. They were the business. We had a couple of cooks and a couple of servers, and that was pretty much it.
But that's kind of the curse of a lot of small businesses, isn't it?
It is. They are the cook and bottle washer and everything else.
Yeah. So
pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. So like I look at most businesses and friends of ours, like even like Andy, he runs an amazing business. But like for us, we wanted to make sure that if Bill and I needed to exit, for health or whatever reasons, that this company is still rolling. We've got 26 employees now.
Wow.
That's a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we don't have our act together, things go south. And so sorry that it was a loss, but it is a lesson learned that you were able to kind of build your entire foundation.
Oh, it is why I do what I do. My tagline is build a better business so you can build a better life. And my goal is to help my clients have a life while building the business, not waiting for retirement or dying in the process.
Yeah. And so you said you owned and sold 3 businesses. Walk us through that journey.
Sure. So I was raised in the restaurant business, went into the Air Force at age 19, was stationed in Maine and Virginia. In 92, got out of the military to run a restaurant in Hampton, Virginia for a gentleman who knew my background. I was a bouncer at his nightclub with my martial arts background. And he said, would you like to be my general manager? I'm like, I never ran a restaurant. He goes, well, you grew up in it. I'll teach you everything else. And so that began my journey. Almost 2 years into it, I was thinking, I'm working for this guy 80 hours a week. I have not got a raise. I'm the only one who has not gotten a raise. I should start my own business. And as the universe, or I would say God would have it, a customer came up with me right around that time and says, hey, have you ever thought about starting your own business? And I looked around going, is there cameras on me right now? Because I was talking to myself. Nobody was in the restaurant. And he got me into network marketing in 1993. And in 2 short years, I went broke and bankrupt. That's how wonderful I failed. Failed. Got a mentor, got back on my feet in 1996 and started a publishing company with my mentor's blessing. Did that for 4 years and then sold that, got into a franchise organization called BNI, built 2 of those franchises and then sold those.
So then you were a franchise owner for BNI.
I was, yes.
So we have lots of BNI members and we've had some leadership in BNI, but you actually owned territories for BNI. And which territories were those?
Central Virginia and Shenandoah Valley.
How many chapters did you have in those locations?
I built 65 of them.
Oh, wow. My goodness.
That's crazy good. And so what made you decide to get out of the very successful BNI franchise?
Sure. So a bunch of us in, I want to say 2003 and 2004, were getting an itch to help people more. We were all successful directors. We had great mentors. And one of them said, I really want to become a coach and I really want to get into franchising. So they started a coaching franchise to help people through masterminds and a program called the 90-Day Fast Track. And anything my mentor touches usually turns to gold. And so I jumped in on with them. But we made one promise. We said, if we're going to do this, you can't run it like you've always run other businesses. It has to have the systems and processes and the look and the brand. And he goes, yes. So we all jumped in, and within 2 years, it didn't change. We didn't have the systems and processes. So one guy left, another guy left, and then I left, and then we all left. And we got in it just to help people at the next level of coaching and consulting.
Wow. Can we take a step back? I'm curious. Owning a BNI franchise, as a franchisee, but then you had lots of chapters that were like your Z's. You're the Zor for your location. What was it like? What kind of support, what kind of training, what was that whole process like when you kind of got onboarded with BNI for your first location?
So I had a great mentor. So they were some of the top directors in the world. So I was very blessed to have met them. I met them through networking. I was in a business course with them. And in between transition of the publishing business and the potential BNI business. And so I came to work for them in Richmond, Virginia. I drove back from Virginia Beach back and forth and eventually became a director. And so one of the things they do is they fly you out to California for a week of training and you go over operations and marketing, how to be successful. To include, you have conferences twice a year where you're learning from the best of the best in the industry, not only about BNI and how to run a BNI group, but how to run a business. And my mentor said what he loved about BNI is that they're teaching how to run a business. Because when they stopped teaching us how to run a business is when my mentor said they're not teaching about running a business. And I don't know what other franchise systems do, but they talk about the widget they're selling or the service that they're offering, and they're failing to talk about HR, failing to talk about hiring best practices.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And one of the things that we talk about with other franchisors as we have developed our franchise, one of the complaints has been there's just not been enough background that a franchisor may or may not teach. One of the things we wanted to do in our training is at least put the basics out there. Here's how you set up your chart of accounts for your QuickBooks. Here's how you make sure you have your marketing levels set and your criteria set. And here's how you make sure you have a proper CPA looking at these, all your insurances. And so, one of the reasons why we even started our podcast was like, you can be a good mechanic, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good, auto shop owner.
Yeah.
And there's not really easy sources to learn some of the basics, just like, yeah, I can get an email, I can get a Gmail, I can get a quick website for free, and I can, hire my 12-year-old daughter to do some Facebook ads for me, right? But the reality is we know there's so much more to that. You got to build your brand. You got to build your reputation. We always say that the reputation you have is one you earned. So let's work on that, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to kind of go through those motions early with the franchisor is important. So do you feel you got good support from BNI for all that?
Oh, 100%, yes.
Yeah. And did you own one and then bought a second, or did you just buy them both at the same time?
So I bought them both at the same time, and my mentor said, you just bought 2 franchise territories. And I didn't know that at the time, so I immediately changed my book so that I had 2 territories. So if I sold one off, I didn't have to untangle the numbers. So I had the Shenandoah Valley was a franchise in my head and now in my books. And then the Central Virginia was also separate books.
And then how long did you own those territories?
I want to say, well, I ran it for 7 years. So I think I owned it for less than 2 years.
Right. Okay.
So I'm curious, when you're running those territories, do you have an office and a team, or is this you running them?
It was me running it out of my home, but then we all got an office and then eventually decentralized that.
Okay.
But you're running it yourself.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. I mean, there's so much that's there. And back then they didn't have all the BNI Connect and all that stuff.
Oh, no, they did not.
Yeah,
they were on the, software 101 and transitioned to the new software, not the one we have now, but it was an interesting transition too.
Yeah. So selling that off, you were then kind of like, all right, now what?
Yeah. Well, I started this business in 2005. Around the time I sold that business, I did both businesses. And how I ended up selling it is I was about to get married and having 2 businesses, wanted to be a good husband. And so I went to my mentor and I said, hey, it's a lot of stress running 2 businesses, about to be married, to be a good husband. Should I sell my BNI business? And he goes, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think I should think? I look back, I laugh at that. And he goes, it sounds like you probably should sell it so you can focus on this business, the coaching consulting business. And that's what I did. And I told you before we started that it was funny. I went from having a mature business, ran without me, and then overnight selling it to this business, which was back then a survival, depended 100% on me.
Right.
And I was like, why did I do that? Because I really want to stay focused on my mission, and that is to help small business owners and associations have a life.
Well, yeah, sometimes your calling is more important than the stress you're going to go through for it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, as parents, as missionaries, lots of stress, and you just sometimes the calling is more important, so you just go through it. So, well, very cool. Well, tell me about how you got to Florida.
How I got to Florida. So my lease at my apartment and a lease at my business were both up at the same time. And so I just took that time. I filled up a U-Haul and I drove to Florida, not knowing where I was going to live, just knew I was going to be somewhere in Orlando.
Interesting. Wow. Well, that took some guts. I'm not sure.
Absolutely.
I've done similar, but not the same. Well, I'm really curious about some of the people you've helped, and but I think there's a few myths about business. There's a few misnomers that are out there. And if one of our listeners is trying to, maybe they're thinking about starting their own business, or they've started one and they're now in kind of a, what to do now phase. What are some things that maybe some myths you can dispel, just some, something that you could just say that would maybe help them get out of the funk that they're in?
Sure.
Loaded question.
Yeah,
I know.
Of course. So I think one of the biggest myths is, well, there's 9 stages of business ownership. Right. I was telling you pre-show that I thought, before I was introduced to the 9 stages from 2 gentlemen from Ireland, I thought there was only 2 stages, broke and really broke. Right. When I realized there are different stages. In the beginning stages of owning a business, you own the business, it runs you, it owns you. And then later, if you get systems, people, and processes in place, you own it and you can run it. And if you don't know that, I did not know that. I thought that you're supposed to be in survival, up and down. That roller coaster ride is going to be how business is. But until I built my business to stage 8, which is maturity, it can run without you, can grow without you, that you really have a business. And I didn't realize until I sold that mature business that overnight, going back to survival, funds are starting to dry up, that there's more to business than that. So I think the myth is that you just set it and forget it. You buy a franchise and that's it.
Right.
But there's work to be done. But if you understand that the different stages, there are certain actions you should take, or there's certain the roadblocks you're going to face, you can get through it.
So there's triggers for the next phase, right?
Yes.
Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're Holeinthewall Drywall Repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with Holeinthewall Drywall Repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today. So as you're moving through, and if you don't mind, we'll actually tiptoe through the 9 steps here in a little bit. So as you're moving through the phases, what are some triggers you should look for? Like how do you know you're approaching the end of one phase into the next?
Sure. So it has to do with percentage of the business depends on you, the percentage of the things that you do to the percentages you don't do. So in the beginning, you're doing 100%. You're in charge of marketing, branding, networking,
payroll, customer service,
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Accounts payable, accounts receivable, estimating. I'm sorry. Guess how I know.
Exactly. And then eventually you get to a point where you're getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, or you realize you hate doing bookkeeping. That was my first thing to delegate. I was doing a lunch and learn, which I do regularly for communities. And there's a woman in the audience. Her name's Anita, and she calls herself the Numbers Ninja. And she made a comment that she loves doing numbers, and she loves getting a box of receipts. And I'm like, who loves that? I hate that. I always joke around when I used to do my own taxes. I don't know if you know, but it took me 3 months to do my taxes.
Wow.
2.5 months of avoiding it, and then 2 weeks before they're due to do them.
Right.
And that was a true story. Anita, I hand over my books to her, which was a box, literal box with receipts stuffed in it.
Right.
And within 2 weeks, she had it all sorted out. 2 weeks. So instead of avoiding it for 2.5 months and then finally having to do it. So I think that's the beginning, is when you start to give up one thing.
Yeah.
You know, before the pre-show, I wrote down this note that I've never said before. But I think the reason when people get stuck in growing their businesses, they get stuck on making decisions based on their past experiences. Let me say that a different way. They're making decisions based on how they failed to hire right the first time, so they believe it can't be done correctly. Because every time I hire, I failed. So no, that's how you did it. If you get the right systems and processes and people in place, then you can get the right people, vet out the wrong people. But that was the aha for me, was we make decisions based on our past experiences, i.e. failures, so we don't want to do that ever again.
Right. Yeah. Well, and frankly, doing business the way you see it isn't maybe the best way to do it, right? So getting outside voices, getting a coach, getting outsources. I mean, listen, one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast is don't do business in a vacuum. You can't do business by yourself. I can do my own. I know how to run QuickBooks, but I got a bookkeeper because my time is way more valuable. I can run my own Facebook and marketing campaign ads, or I can hire the right person that's going to do it the right way.
But you don't understand, James. But if I do my own payroll, my own bookkeeping, I'm saving money.
Yeah,
I'm saving money, right? And I used to say that about my bookkeeping. I'm like, I'm saving $50 an hour.
Yeah.
I'm dreading, thousands of dollars not making it. And exactly.
Yeah. Well, as an entrepreneur, we undervalue our time.
Yeah.
Right. So we undervalue how much it's worth for us to spend an hour on something that we could hire someone else to do it.
Yeah.
So if I value myself, my attorney will charge me $450 an hour. Right. Well, what's my time worth? $200-$300 an hour.
Yeah.
So if I'm spending 2 hours on something frivolous that I can spend $100 and have someone else do.
Yeah. I'd heard it put this way years ago. We're running past the dollars to get to the dimes.
Yep.
Yeah. Good logic. So don't be afraid to release a few things.
Yeah. And one of the questions I ask people, if you were to stop working today, how long will your business run itself? Answer is it wouldn't in most cases. You don't have a business. You have a job. Whether you like it or not, you have a job. Maybe you're making good money, but if you stop, the business stops. That's the challenge. So I would say to you, how can you say to a point where if I stop working today, it can run at least 2 weeks without me? That's a good start. 2 months is a better start. 2 years, now you have a business. Now you have something that's valuable.
And you do that by
delegating more, using outside resources, hiring people. I find in the coaching and consulting business, at least for my business, when I hired an assistant, I grew. So then when I got a full-time assistant, I grew more. Then when I had 1.5 assistants, I grew even more. But when I try to do it on my own, you don't grow.
Wow. So let's talk about the stages. I'm now curious about, because you walked through them a little bit, but so tell me a little bit about your micro to millions philosophy in the 9 stages.
Sure. So the 9 stages are the stages a business owner or an organization will go through. In the beginning stage, like I said, it's running you. You're not running it. Stage 1 is concept. That's an idea that you have that you're looking to start a business. It's probably the most exciting, but it really isn't a stage of business. It's a pre-game, if you will. Stage 2 is now you're going to start your business. Stage 3 is survival, where a lot of people get stuck. You realize at stage 3, it's survival, that funds are starting to dry up. Now you're freaking out. And you should start getting help at that moment, right? Before you run out of money, before you run out of time.
And at what point in that business does stage 3 typically happen?
Typically, it depends on the industry. So typically, it's 2 to 3 years, 1 to 2, maybe one person on your team, if at all. So a lot of solopreneurs get there right away. I dealt with over the years a lot of solopreneurs come to me and say, "Hey, I can't figure it out. Can you help me with your coaching classes and curriculum?" I'm like, "Sure, let's talk about it." So it can happen within the first 2 years. Wow. If you don't have the right support or systems.
Okay. So getting out of stage 3 is key.
Yes. Yeah. People get stuck, in my experience, from stage 3 to stage 4. And the reason why they get stuck is because they think getting to stage 4 is going to be harder than it is to stage 3, but it's not. It's a mental issue, not a physical issue.
Yeah. I don't know if it correlates, but we always talk about, we hear a lot that the first million is typically the easiest, but the second million is the hardest. Does that make sense?
That's not my experience,
okay.
Except it is when I've dealt with several $1 million companies at 700, 900, 1.2 million. And those people, yes, because they didn't know better. They just sold. They just sell. Their threshold for pain is high, or they don't get stressed easily. I remember, his name is Josh. Josh got to 700,000, eventually now at 3 million, I'm told, by just pure hard work. And I don't think anything fazed Josh. Josh was young, very successful, single at the time, whereas other people stressed the entire time. So there are people, I think, that not that they get it by luck, they just have a different association with stress and anxiety, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about getting from 3 to 4.
So getting from stage 3 to 4. So typically what happens between stage 3 and 4 is now you have to do something different. What got you to stage 3, say that's $200,000 in revenue. Now you got to go to stage 4. That could be going to 300 to 350. Now that could be different businesses when you get different sizes, but that's been my experience. And that typically is what you do first. Do you hire somebody? Do you put people in place? Do you put processes in place? It's different for each person. For example, I was working with a IT company. They were doing $680,000 in revenue. And their biggest issue is they got there by pure hard work. And now they weren't going to be able to get to $1 million. So they pulled me in and said, "Hey, how can you help us?" And we found that the owner, the business ran around the owner. And based on his level of stress management or lack of stress management, was inhibiting his growth and not having a process to grow on top of it.
So then he had to get out.
He didn't have to get out. His wife said he had to hire me.
All right. So easier said than done, right? To get from 3 to 4.
Yep.
Because I think there is a thought, owners are like, it's a pride thing. It's almost an ego thing. This is my baby. I applaud Bill a lot because he got to the point where it's like, all right, well, I do need some support. A lot of people will just try and, muscle through it themselves, right?
Yep.
So being able to kind of like admit to yourself that what got me here won't get me there. Correct. And bringing in the proper support and delegation.
I think it's a decision thing. So using him as an example, we got to a point where should we hire a customer service? Should we sell more? Should we hire a customer service representative or should we hire a technician? And I think when business owners are trying to solve it themselves, they don't know which one's right. And I said, so it sounds like you need a customer service rep dispatcher and help with the sales. He goes, yes. So why don't we do both? He goes like, can we do both? I'm like, well, let's figure out how you can do both. So it's not one or the other in that example. In Josh's case, Josh was the CEO, he was the head salesperson, and he was the project manager. And so he's now doing 3 major roles in the company. Now, credit to him, he was doing $700,000 of revenue, pure hard work, drive and determination, love it. But now the question is, what do you solve first? And if you're by yourself, you're not the best person to get advice from because you got yourself into that spot.
Very true. Very true. All right, so moving from 4 to 5.
So 4 to 5, this is going beyond capacity, growing beyond yourself. And this is when you start putting leaders in place, potentially sales assistants and processes in place, so that now the business can starting to run without you. So when it was 100% at the beginning, now it's down to 90, potentially 80, even 70% the business is reliant on you.
Wow. And is that a process that takes years in the making? Or?
It goes back to how quickly you're willing to make a decision and act, right? I've seen people go to $1 million or more in 3 years, some people in 10 years, some people never. So I think it's the speed of implementation is the key to success.
Is it a mental hurdle for the owners to get to this next point, or is there these aha moments that happen pretty fast and they're eager to do it?
I think it's mental throughout the entire process. I think, in the beginning, when it's your baby, I think one of the things around 6 and 7 is, no one's doing it my way. And that's always that's a red flag for me. It's like, so your way is the only way to run a company, or your way is the only way to do X? Well, yeah. I'm like, so you're telling me out of all the companies around the world, yours is the only way? Well, no. I'm like, so there's some people who figured out another way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
And then that moment, they're like, oh, so they sort of get stuck in their head. They got to do it one way. And then you point out that you're the only company who does it this way. Like, no. I'm like, okay, so let's figure out a different way, not going against what you ultimate outcome, because it comes down to the outcome.
Yeah.
How, that's where you need to be flexible.
So this process, when you're working with the owners, what kind of time are you having to spend with them to kind of get through this?
It varies based on the desire to get there quicker. So I work with people twice a month. I love working once a week because now you have no loss of time. You're implementing on a regular, consistent basis, but that has to do with how big you are, what resources you have. Because if you're a one-man shop, every week you can't handle that. You got to be doing something. Yeah. Where you have a team of people twice a month, it can be good. But I like weekly with the bigger companies because we get there faster. I want to get to where we want to go within 3 to 5 years so that you can enjoy the fruits of your labors, because I don't know what's going to happen to you or the world 6 years from now.
Yeah.
So let's get you there faster, and you determine how fast we go or how slow. I'll push you.
And as an owner, you know, we're not promised tomorrow, right?
Correct.
So I would hate to be in a situation where something happened to me and the business failed, my spouse struggled. So putting these things kind of at play earlier is better than waiting to the last minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to I use my dad as my inspiration. He doesn't have a tomorrow. He died at 61. When he died, the restaurant died. So often as business owners, we think we have a tomorrow so we can just cruise, right? I'm not saying you have to rush, but who knows what happens tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. What's the next phase, next stage?
Next stage is stage 7, which is false maturity. Entrepreneur, or your 4, as we like to call it, is stage 7 is a great stage. You're making money, you have leaders in place, you can take time off. But when you take time off, you still think and worry about the business, right? And you're not letting go. Not a bad stage at stage 7, but you want to get to stage 8, which is business maturity. The business now can run without you, can grow without you, you make plenty of money. You pretty much can go do other things if you so choose to. And then stage 9, you pass it on to the next successor or you sell the business.
Right. In the stage 8, you're not necessarily not working. You're just not reliant on.
Correct. And this interesting thing I was thinking about this recent quarter that we just got through is I was talking to several individuals that we're working with, is that we free them up so much now they get to think the way they want to think, right? They get to go back to dreaming again. So now all the leaders are in place, all the processes are in place. Now the business can run without them. So now what do I want to do? I want to make some improvements. I want to think about some other markets that we want to open up. They get to dream again. Whereas prior to that, we're back to just grinding, stressing. So knowing that at stage 8, your mind is truly freed up again to start to do another business, another concept, another market, or in some cases, going back to developing your people to become even better leaders.
Right. So becoming the visionary again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does.
It does. Golly. So what else can we hit on, Jim? What are some other things that we can help these business owners that are listening? I want to squeeze as much knowledge out of you as I possibly can for these guys and gals out there.
A couple of things that I would recommend anyone to do is obviously read. One of the first books I would read before starting a business, running a business, is E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It is the business Bible anybody will talk about.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal book. But in addition to that, I would read Built to Sell by John Warlow. I went through all of Michael Gerber's curriculum, his CDs, his books, and he never tells you how to actually do what he talks about. And he promises that he's going to tell you. Promise you. In fact, I remember going up to a wine festival in Finger Lakes, New York, on the 7th CD of his E-Myth Masteries. And he's about to tell me the secret to making E-Myth work and creating a successful business. I pulled over to the side of the road next to the Susquehanna River, and he finishes it, and he never tells you. And I scream at the top of my lungs, no, I just spent 7 hours listening to this guy, and he never tells you. And I was so disappointed. Great book, don't get me wrong. Fast forward a couple of years later, I come across this book, Built to Sell, written by John Warlow. And I read that was probably the fastest book I've ever read in my life, business book I've ever read in my life. And it tells you actually how to implement E-Myth. In fact, he knew Michael Gerber. He did work with Michael Gerber. And so it's a phenomenal book. And it's talking about how to build a business that can run without you so that if ever you want to sell it one day, you can, but it doesn't have to run without you. But it's a phenomenal book. I open up the inside cover and I see that he lives in Toronto. I happened to be in Orlando that morning. And I've never done this. I emailed John. I said, John, I'm going to be in Toronto next week. I would love to meet you. I've been moved by your book. He goes, I'm sorry, Jim, I'm going to be in Orlando next week.
Oh, no.
So we missed each other. And so I bought 300 of his books because he republished it. And if you bought 300, you got him to speak. Right. That's how powerful the book is. So I would highly recommend those two books together. It'll be a game changer. And then the final book that I recommend, something we talked about pre-show, is Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. And this is key. In working with franchises over the years, I find that a lot of franchisors tell franchisees how to be successful is do it the way I did it. And in fact, I was working with a handyman franchise originally out of Colorado, and that gentleman was successful, in my opinion, one time, right? And now he started a franchise. Mm-hmm. Whereas I recommend you start three locations, 5 locations to truly understand how successful you are. And so for years, he would tell his franchisees, just do it the way I did it, do it the way I did. Well, when I did some background check on this guy, he had a builder relationship that was on his team who did all the work. He was the visionary, and this guy did the work. And so together they did it. Not everyone has a builder to work with them alongside. Not everyone has partners. Mm-hmm. So he missed that part of the equation. And so I figured that out, told my client what I discovered and what she should do to fix it, and eventually became $1 million business. My point there is that he did it one way and one way only. I remember as a quote that says, were you successful for 10 years or were you successful 1 year 10 times? Mm-hmm. There's a clear difference. So in Small Giants, written by Bo Burlingham, talks about 6 companies who chose to be great versus huge. 6 different approaches. And I love it because I like story number 1 and story number 4 and story number 7. You know, all the stories that they have in the book give you 6 different ways, 7 different ways that these businesses became successful their way. Following a system, but their way. And I loved it because I might not do it your way because I'm an introvert. I might not do it your way because I'm from Iowa. I might not do it your way because I'm not from California who has business experience. So this gave me 6 different scenarios, ideas in my head, other than what my mentor taught me how to do it one way, my other mentor told me another way. Now I have 6 additional, 7, maybe even 100 different ways by combining them all.
Wow. So currently, can you take on more new clients?
I can.
You can? Okay. So if people wanted to get a hold of you to kind of pick your brain and maybe hire you to kind of help them grow from micros to millions, what's the best way to do that?
You can go to my website at jimromanonline.com. That's jimromanonline.com, and fill out the contact information. There's a lot of free resources there, too. Some great blogs that people would love.
Excellent. Do you ever go and speak at other places, like as a keynote speaker and stuff like that?
I do, yes. I love to speak around the country. I do a lot of work with the National Association of Home Builders, National Association of Residential Property Managers, and organizations like that.
Very cool. Well, Jim, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's one thing that I think to be successful in life and in business is to think about what you want your life to look like, what you want your business to look like. And so often if you can visualize it, if you can see it, you can achieve it. You've heard that before. I think so often we just start a business or whatever that we're doing and we just work hard and hope in the end it looks great and grandiose. And so I would say find something that someone you can emulate, because that's how I got where I am, is I found good people that built good businesses and work towards being like that. Now, be careful not to pick the wrong person to emulate because you might end up where you don't want to end up.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, it is good.
Listen, having a mentor, having someone that you can kind of guide in principle and in ideas is a good idea. That's really the way to go. Jim, thank you for coming on. Jim Roman, the owner of Business Owners Institute. I'm sure this will not be our last discussion. We travel in similar circles, so now they have collided. So good luck getting rid of me.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on.
My pleasure.
Very good. Well, that was a great show. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Holeinthewall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Holeinthewall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.